from the 12 Universal Laws of Success is really a part of our foundational process that we're doing right now. As we start this new year, it's important to get some basic fundamental concepts in place. You know, many times we can start building a house on a foundation that is not necessarily a strong foundation. And the end result is that later on during the year, stuff may not work out exactly the way that we want it to. So, how you start the year is extremely important. And it's important that we lay a foundation with some general success principles. And today, this is really part of a four-part set, and it's entitled the Four Stages of Life. And we're going to look into each one of these stages because as we live our lives, we pass through the stages. The first stage of life is the stage of education. And that's like the first 20 to 25 years of our lives where we learn our logic, our system of values, how to communicate, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world. The second stage of life is the stage of sensation, where we learn about our emotions and how stuff feels, how it tastes. We learn about love. We learn about sex. We learn about drugs. We learn about competition, all of those things that titillate the senses. The third stage of life is the stage of power, where we have literally mastered what we need to know, and we've mastered our instincts, our emotions, our feelings, so that we can be centered on getting things done. And then the fourth stage, so the third stage of life is the stage of power. The fourth stage of life is the stage of immortality, where we really begin to think about what we want our life to have stood for. You know, it's not so much about what we did, but it's like, what is the impact of what we did? So today, lesson 61, we're going to be focusing on the first stage of life. Thank you so much for joining us, beautiful, on Instagram and Facebook. And share today with your people and your contacts about our message, and afterwards share it with others. And I'll tell you, our whole purpose is to give you the whole armor, give you the foundation that you need to create the life you desire. So let's look at the first stage of life, and we're reading from page 26 of the 12 Universal Laws of Success Superachiever Edition. The first stage of life is the stage of education. This stage generally lasts from conception to 20 or 25 years of age. During this stage, you learn the basic fundamental rules of the game of life. Let me say that again. During this first stage, this education stage, you learn the fundamental rules of the game of life. You formulate or accept a value system. What's important to you? What do you believe in? You get your basic instruction in reading, writing, counting, logic, decision-making, and all of the tools that you need to create a successful life for yourself. Generally, in the education stage, you lay the foundation, the thoughts, the attitudes, the emotions, the associations, and even the habits on which the rest of your life is based. I'm going to read that again because that's very important. That this first stage of life is the stage where you lay the foundation, your thoughts, your attitudes, your emotions, your associations, your habits. And this foundation is the one on which the rest of your life is built. In this first stage, you develop your basic attitude toward yourself. Wow. Your self-image. You also develop your basic feelings about yourself, your self-esteem. You develop your attitude toward other people. Good relationships, bad relationships, fear, confidence, love, pain. You develop your attitude toward other people and toward the world in general. Wow. It is here that you develop self-confidence or fear, faith or doubt, cowardice or courage. Your nature, the core essence of your nature, whether positive or negative, whether thief or benefactor, is molded. Wow. So this first stage of life, we often say the die is cast. In this first stage of life is where we learn so much about ourselves, about our attitudes, about our thoughts, about other people, about our emotions. In this first stage of life, so much can happen positively or negatively. The challenge in the first stage of life is that most of your education comes from other people. Wow, let me read that again. The challenge in this first stage of life is that most of your education comes from other people. In other words, you have not had time, a maturity to develop the power of discernment where you can decide what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is false. You as a child or a young adult had very little input in this first stage of life, in this stage of education. Thus, the thoughts, attitudes, emotions, habits, and experiences and relationships, positive or negative, of your parents, teachers, ministers, or any other authority or admiration figure tend to be perpetuated in the child and young adult. So what we're saying is that in this first stage of life, you as a child pick up on the thoughts of your parents, the thoughts of the people who raise you. You know, many times people may not be raised by their parents. They may be raised in the system. So the input, the things that are impacting you at this first stage of life come from other people. So if your parents have a negative attitude, if they're fearful, it impacts you. If your parents are good people and caring and patient, it impacts you. The point is, though, whatever it is, you did not choose your parents. You did not choose the environment in this early stage. And so it is in this stage that so many outside influences impact who you are and what you're about. If this foundation stage is not laid down solidly, then very often, at some point in life, that crack in the foundation will manifest. So, for example, as a child, if you're raised in an environment of criticism, from the first thing that you're able to hear as a child is someone telling you you're not good enough, you didn't do it right, you should have done this, you could have done that. If you are raised in an environment of criticism as a child, and that mindset, that emotional set is not addressed later, at some point in your life, that fear of criticism can impact you to the point where it influences how you move, how you do things. And so just taking that thought through, if you were raised in an environment of criticism, constant criticism, where you fear the criticism and you try to avoid, negative criticism, then as you grow into become an adult, you may always be seeking the approval of other people. You may never want to put yourself in a situation where people can criticize you. So it may steal away your initiative. If you're afraid of being criticized, let me tell you something, folks. If you're afraid of being criticized, it hampers and slows down your ability to be creative. And so that whole idea of the things that impacted you as a child literally impacts you as an adult. Now, it's not fatal because you can fix it, you can adjust it, but it's important that you know how it got there. These cracks in your foundation, these contrary thoughts to the thoughts that you want to experience as an adult, these contrary emotions to the emotions that you want to experience as an adult, these counterproductive habits that you want to the things you want to experience as an adult, and even your ability to make relationships, to relate and connect up with other people formed in this early stage can greatly impact your relationships in the future. And so these cracks in your foundation can show up like a thief in the night and snatch away your peace of mind, your good health, your glory, and your possessions. We've seen it happen with people where they achieve a certain level of success and then all of a sudden everything crumbles. When this foundation, this first stage of education, is built on truth, honesty, love, faith, discipline, confidence, compassion, and all of the positive aspects and attributes, you have a good life. You're in a good position, and nothing is impossible. The young adult who has properly completed this stage of education is prepared for the next 3 stages and the rest of their lives. The young adult who has things to work with as a result of this first stage of life, it's now important to be aware that it has taken place, of how it has taken place, because now you can fix it in the later stages of life. Tomorrow, we will deal with the stage of sensation. We call it the stage of sensation, emotion, and experience, where you learn how to deal with things that feel good, that look good, that titillate your senses. We have a question: what age is included in the first stage of life? Normally, we're talking the first 20 years, but the most impactful of those is the first 7 years, where that foundation is core, that core port, that core foundation of thoughts, that core foundation of emotions, that core foundation of habits and of association. So the 20 years, 20 to 25 years, the stage of education, but the first 7 years are the most critical. Wow, thank you so much for being so interactive and sharing with us with so many friends. You are quite welcome, Mr. Neil. Neil, thank you. You're quite welcome. And each and every morning, folks, at 8 o'clock, join us and share it with somebody, because we're going to be doing this every morning until the cows come home. And I didn't send the cows out yet, so we don't know when they're coming home. But once again, this is Dr. Herbert Harris, and I invite you, if you like what you hear, join our Patreon website. We have a membership website where you get all of these daily readings that we've had, all of our success mentorship classes. We've done over 40, I think over 45 success mentorship classes. You get access to many of the courses we've taught in the past, such as how to overcome procrastination, how to overcome lack of focus. Go to our Patreon website, www.patreon.com/Success Mentorship Network. This is Dr. Herbert Harris said, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow morning, where we talk about the second stage of life, the stage of sensation and experience. And so it is.